Yo, yo, yo. How's everybody doing today? It's your boy, Coach Vic. I'm back at you with another lesson in this land investing business. So, when I first sat down to think about this, what I was going to show you, I was going to talk about this current sale I went through and the empathy needed to keep me from basically flying off at the handle or basically just writing them off in the first place. But as I sat down to think about it, I realized how much empathy you need in this whole business. And it doesn't just start when you're trying to make a sale and you're trying to ease fears. It doesn't just happen like in this story I'm about to share with you after the sale is made and you're trying to calm people down and help them through like whatever anxiety they may feel. It permeates through the whole business. I mean, from the sales to the acquisition to every. I mean, if you can't feel for your fellow man, your fellow woman, like then you're in the wrong business. Well, fuck it, you probably shouldn't be in business in the first place in general, because if you can't provide any value to people, yeah, you might be able to make some short term money, but long term, it ain't gonna work. You ain't gonna have nothing. No one's gonna want to mess with you because you don't really give off that vibe that you're looking out for their best interest. So how this all started, like how I actually started to formulate this in words, was I made a sale last weekend, and the person in question lives in a different state. I sold some property in Texas. They live in Pennsylvania, and they were looking to escape Pennsylvania for they had their own personal reasons. I'm like, okay, great. So they're asking me questions. I'm like, look, I don't go to these properties. I've never been there. I don't really know. So I keep it real, right? And I'll go into all the details in a moment. Next thing they're like, okay, I think I want to do it. Let's make it happen. I'm like, great. So I give her the spiel, like, this is what I need. This is to complete the deal, X, Y, and Z. And the first red flag I saw was early on. Now, this is a tip I recommend for all of you guys when you're selling your property. I use like Zillow, for example. It's a great place. It has a lot of eyeballs, a lot of traffic. And what I do is once I sell a property in that area, I use the same ad. I don't take it down after the property sells. I just, when people call me, they're like, hey, is that property available? I'm like, no, it just sold, but I have another one. And side note, the reason why I do this little buyer or seller psychology, where they get a little bit of FOMO instantly, like, damn, I already missed out. I'm so disappointed. But I tell them I have another lot just like it in the same exact area, a few feet from the original lot or however far it is. Then they're like, oh, okay, I got to take advantage of this before this one goes away. And again, when you're working with Zillow or any other online platform, it always takes some time for things to kind of ramp up the speed. So instead of having things go like this, you get a sale, and then you take the ad down, and it goes, the momentum you have goes down again, and you got to put up another ad, and I just leave it up here, and we're good. So I'm like, yeah, so the lot you're looking for has been sold. I have another one just like it. And we're talking about it and this and that. And they're asking about the state of Texas. I'm like, look, I don't know. I've only visited. It's a nice state. My stepdad lives there now. One of my best friends lives there. I have nothing but good things to say about the state. And they're like, okay, great. We go, we get a down payment. And I've noticed that the person who put the down payment was like a spouse or, excuse me, like a boyfriend or something. I don't know. And on that, I'm like, okay, not a big deal. This happens all the time. But later on that night, I get a call or a text. Excuse me, no, it was actually the next morning. I'm working out and get a text like, hey, I think I need to get let out of this contract. I don't know if I can do it, this and that. I'm like, well, what's going on? And they had some irrational fears. I'm like, so you're worried about a state you've never been, for reasons that you can't really verify, and you want what now? And they're like, yeah, I kind of want to get let out because I don't know what's going to happen. I'm like, yeah, I can't promise you what's going to happen, but I do know this: if you live your life this way, you know, I it's going to suck, right? And I'm not going to give the details of the conversation because that's private. But I was like, all right, whatever. Look, in the contract, I say, look, if you just stop paying, the everything gets voided, and it is, but you don't get your money back. And I put that in there on purpose, not just for this individual, but in general, if they're going to pay me like in two payments, for example, because I don't want people. I don't want that people flip flopping. I tell them up front, like, look, once you pay me, that's it. I'm keeping the money, and if you change your mind, that's your prerogative. So, but you're not getting your money back. So you need to understand that before we get into this deal. And they fully understand it. They fully understand it, and most times that gives people the added oomph to keep them resolute in what they're trying to do. But in this case, she was like, I don't know. But after talking to her, it calmed their fears down. So I'm thinking, yeah, empathy. You need empathy. You need empathy. But I realized it goes further than that. So one of the first deals I did when I got restarted in March or April, I was talking to an older woman. I like this deal a lot. I talk about it in many ways because there's a lot of lessons in this one deal. And in the conversation, I can hear her going through this older woman, the basically worrying about what other people would say about selling a property at such a low price versus her actual, and the emotion that comes up with that versus her actual logic. Like, I'm not going to use this property. My kids don't want it. I'm paying taxes on it. It's actually a burden to me, but I should get more for it, right? Isn't that how property works? But no one's been offering, and I can't sell it. And if I try to, so you can feel and you can hear that anguish going back and forth, like, okay, what should happen versus what needs to happen. What needs to happen is for her to get rid of that tax problem, that liability, that thing that sits in the back of your mind, knowing you have something that you can't do anything with, and it just eats at you. What the emotion says, like, well, real estate is worth lots of money. That I should be getting paid lots of money for this. Isn't this why I held on to it? Well, that's kind of like saying, like, okay, I bought me a car, and it's a nice car, and in 10 years, it's going to be a collector's item, or 20 years, or 30 years, or whatever. It's going to be a collector's item because that's what happened with muscle cars in like the early 2000s. So you're expecting the same thing to happen. Well, only certain cars went up in value, and they had a significant role in like maybe the history of cars or something like that. Not all of them did. Maybe they were popular at one point and people couldn't afford them back in the day, but now they can. Land could be a similar thing, but in general, it's not. It's either people are buying it because they're doing something with it or they're not. And helping her understand, like, look, I'm not going to force you to do anything you don't want to do. I understand what you're going through right now. I understand how it's tough. But here's the reality of the situation. Now, if you want to actually keep paying taxes on property you're never going to use, you're more than welcome to do that. I totally understand. It's hard to let go of something that you've had for many years. But what's the difference between today and next month? What's going to change with that property? There's no developers coming. You're not going to use it. Your kids don't want it. What's going to change? What's going to change next year at this time when you have another tax bill come through? What happens if somebody starts to squat on your property? And because you're not using it, you don't know that, and now maybe they do something illegal on your property. They dump a bunch of garbage on your property, whatever. What happens then? And when you start to think about it that way logically with them, you feel bad for the situation because you understand, like, damn, like, I thought I can get more for it. You're like, all right, well, I'm going to make this easy for you. I'm going to take care of all the work. I'm going to pay you up front. And the only thing you have to do is just get something notarized. And I'm going to send a check with the deed. And when you do that, or when I do that, I mean, you can cash a check anytime you want. So you don't have to wait for anything. And since, guess what? I'm going to also give you a cashier's check. So you don't have to wait for any money to clear. It's right there. It's as good as cash. And once you do that, you're going to feel better. And then once she did that. And I'm like, wow, okay. It made things easier. Going on to people with sales, you got to realize people want land because they have a reason for it. Now, the reason may be this grand dream, or it could just be like, hey, you know what? I kind of like land. I think it's neat. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I kind of want it. But for whatever reason, they want it for a reason, and they're searching for it. It's not a little like wish or something, where it's something that they're actually looking for. Because most of the land that I market, I'm not aggressive finding people, not yet anyways. I'm letting people come to me. I'm like, hey, this is what I got. This is the price. If you want it, come talk to me. And so those people are raising their hand like, hey, yeah, I want to talk to you. I want this property. So when they're coming to me, I have to understand, look, they're doing something different. They haven't bought land online before, probably. The ones that do, they buy quickly. It's real easy with them. But the ones who haven't, It's like, well, I normally you have to have a real estate agent. Normally you have to have all these papers signed and you have to do all these inspections and all that. And I'm letting them know, like, look, land is different. What are you going to inspect? It's nothing there. What are you going to, what's all the paperwork for? There's not much to talk about. It's basically this boundary, these boundaries mark off what's yours and what you, and then if there's restrictions in the area, this is what you can and can't do with that land. It's that simple. There's nothing else to do. And understanding that their fear, like, okay, I'm actually going to take a big step into property ownership. I've never owned anything before. I don't know what, can I do this? Will I be able to take care of this? You have to understand that. And helping them understand what they're getting into, feeling for what they're going through, and then making it really easy for them to buy makes all the difference between a sale and no sale. There's been times I've seen people on both trying to buy a property and sell property. They put all the responsibility on the other person, and guess what? The other person don't want that responsibility. They're not the expert. The land seller is, or the land buyer is the expert. And why are they putting it on the other person? Well, I don't know. I feel it's a lack of empathy. They don't realize what the other person's going through. Because they don't realize what the other person is going through, they easily just put that responsibility on them. And again, people don't buy in that situation, or they don't sell to you. So here are some tips I have for you to kind of basically summarize all of this to help it easier for you to buy property and sell property. Number one, make it easy for the person you're dealing with. When you're selling property, that's why I pay up front with the cashier's check. And there's more reasons to that than just the empathy part. And if you work with me, I can give you the details, but too many details to go through here. You make it easy to buy from you by, you take care of all the paperwork. You do the same thing when you're selling it too. Or excuse me, when you're buying property, you take care of all the paperwork. You make sure all the back taxes are paid. And that means, like, when you're buying a property, like, hey, look, Mr. or Mrs. Property Owner, I'm going to take care of the tax problem for you. Don't worry about it. I'm going to make this easy for you. When it comes to selling the property, you're like, hey, look, the property taxes have already been paid, right? Little do they know you use some of their, that payment that they paid you to buy the property to pay the taxes, but it doesn't matter. They don't care that that the money you used for the purchase is to help pay the taxes. They just want to know they didn't got to worry about it for this year. That's one less thing to fret about. Like, okay, well, if I got to pay taxes, then who do I pay and how do I pay it and when do I need to pay? You don't got to worry about that. You've already taken care of it. When they're coming, so you got to make it so easy to buy from you, so easy to sell to you. All right, you take care of everything. You're the expert, not them. You're the one that's going to assume the risk and the responsibility. So make it easy. Number two, I like to sell on warranty deeds when possible. And I have a whole thing coming soon to all you guys about the different deed types and what they mean. But in general, warranty deed means, look, the title of this property is clear, and I can verify from between now and all the way back from the beginning that the property, there's no like entanglements with other people thinking they own the property, or there's no encumbrances that would prevent me from selling it to you and things like that. So it's like a warranty that you buy. Like when you buy something, you have a warranty. Like, hey, something goes wrong, the manufacturer will fix it or whatever. It's a similar concept. So warranties when I can, warranty deeds when I can, and when I can't, maybe a special warranty deed where it's like, look, I will make sure that while I had it, nothing else went crazy with it. Everything is accounted for, everything is paid, etc., etc. Before I had it, it's hard to say because maybe it was in a tax sale or something, and those deeds aren't sold with any type of warranty. It's just like the county sells it to a person. Next, make it easy for people to buy things from you online. So you got to be able to accept money quickly and easily. You got to be able to articulate that in a way where they understand, they feel comfortable. Because again, most people aren't used to buying property online. Some people aren't used to buying it, many things online. They still have to go to a brick and mortar shop and pay with cash and all of that. You'll even run into people who say, hey, when do we meet so we can talk about the property? And when you tell them, like, I don't live in the state, there's no way we're going to be able to meet to talk about this property. And side note, even if you live near the property, I don't necessarily recommend meeting. Not necessarily out of safety, but more or less it's like you don't know if they're really going to buy or not. Why waste your time? People who want the property are going to pay. But anyways, even though you don't know people are going to buy, you understand, like, yeah, they're nervous about not getting ripped off. They hear about these scams and whatnot, and they want to make sure they're not a victim of these things. So you make it super clear on the terms. you give them a written contract that's very simple to read and understand in plain language. That is like, hey, this is the property you're getting. This is the location in in the county. I'll pay the taxes. I'll do this and I'll do that. You just got to transfer the money by a certain or pay for it by a certain date, and you both sign. Very simple. It puts people at ease. It makes people feel normal, especially when you say, hey, this is a legally binding contract. I'm legally bound. Like once we both sign this, to give you the property once you pay the money. And if I don't, now you have legal recourse to come after me and get either your money back or the property, and maybe if you have some slick lawyer, maybe both. Who knows? So, thinking about it from their end, how do I make it easy for them? Right. Next, helping buyers and sellers do what's right. Now, this is a big one because everybody, as I said, has a dream. They have a goal. They have a reason why they want to either sell you the property or they want to buy it from you. And sometimes it's scary, it's difficult. They don't know what to do. And if you let them off the hook from not going for their goal, well, then what kind of person are you? They need your property to build that house, start their business, have a place for their animals, whatever it is. Or they need to get rid of this tax burden, this land burden, and you have a chance to take that from them, to help them out with those goals. And you don't do it because why? Now, unless it's a really bad business deal, I figure you got to help them do what they need to get done. On the sell side, they need to sell. When you're trying to buy it, they need to sell it to you. And you got to help them, just like the help with that elderly woman from the story earlier. You got to help them understand selling is in their best interest. And not only is it in their best interest, but I'm going to make it easy for them so it's painless. And you have to help them understand that. When you're selling to somebody else, remember, find out what their goals and their dreams are. Help them understand that this property is going to take you one step closer to that goal, to that dream. And don't sell, you don't want them to sell themselves short from actually going for that goal or that dream because they're a little nervous. Look, we've all been there, right? You're like, I need to do this. I'm ready. I'm excited. And then when it's time to pull the trigger, we get stage fright. We get a little shook. Be that person that helps them take that step. Have that emotional courage to be like, look, man, I'm not going to let you just quit on yourself for invalid reasons. And sometimes the reasons may seem valid. Like there's times where people are like, oh, I can't do it because I have I've heard the story recently. Oh, I have a deaf daughter and like I don't know if I can move. Like I don't know what a lack of hearing has anything to do with anything. How does that stop you from moving? How does that stop you from living your life right now? And then once they realize, okay, it's not, I'm making excuses, I'm being a little silly, you're like, look, you need this property. I'm selling to you at a great price. You're not going to find a better price anywhere. It's either you don't buy this, you go back to your life and nothing changes. And the things you complain about, you still complain about. And the things that are still problems, they're still going to be problems. Or you take that step. It's a step that you're going to need courage to take. You take that step. You purchase this property. Now you own property. Now you have an asset. And you use it for whatever you were planning to use it for. I can't tell you what it looks like down the road, but I can tell you that this is the next step because you need the property to do the things that you told me that you want to do. Don't punk out on yourself and quit because you're a little nervous, right? You need to have empathy to get to that point where you can show them a little tough love. You can show them that, look, I understand what you're going through. I'm going to help you get there. You just gotta trust, right? But you gotta understand that you can't. It's hard to get to that point if you don't have that empathy, right? And I'm gonna put it like this: unlike mugs or trinkets or certain things that you can buy on Amazon right now, that you can go through and be an affiliate marketer or e-com store owner, Shopify, drop shipping, whatever. No one needs another mug. No one needs a lot of the crap that people are buying. Tell me, who doesn't need land? Who doesn't need a place to go? Who doesn't need a place to live? A place that they can start their family legacy. Or if they already have property, continue and enhance their family legacy. Who doesn't need that? Everybody needs that. This is the industry where you are actually selling something, in my opinion, that matters. It doesn't matter if you can sell a mug or a digital marketing course or anything like that. Those things are important for their own reasons. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be a new course. There's always going to be a different trinket to buy. Last I heard, they're not making any more land. Well, maybe in Hawaii where the volcanoes are coming up and new islands are kind of starting to form. But in general, especially in the contiguous U.S., they're not making any more land. What we got is what we got. And right now, there's a lot of people who own land who shouldn't for whatever reason. There's people who could be using that property for who knows what. There's a lot of good things that we can do with these properties. And without the empathy to understand that, you're not going to be aggressive when you're trying to buy. You're not going to be aggressive when you're trying to sell. And I'm not talking about aggressive in a predatory way, but just not letting your own fears, your doubts, your insecurities, your assumptions on what people think stop you from actually taking action. It happens all the time. You're like, well, I don't want to offer such a low price because they're going to want. How do you know? How do you know? You talk to this person? Do you know what the land represents in their mind? Do you know what they're willing to give up for? Hell, there like a couple weeks ago, about a month ago, maybe two at this point now, I almost overpaid for property because I assumed the person would want some money. They're like, look, just take the damn property from me. We just don't want it no more. I got it for free. I got it for free. And that was after two chances to pay for it. Now, if I would have just taken my assumption and ran with it, I would have paid for property that I could have gotten for free. And who knows how that would have affected me or the property or the margins or whatever. But because I closed my mouth and just listened to what they were saying, they were willing and glad for me to take it as long as I took care of the paperwork. They didn't like, as long as it's easy for us, we'll do it. You know, you're helping us out. Let us help you by just gifting this property to you. So the point is, without the empathy, you won't be able to buy at a good price. You won't be able to sell at top dollar. Because you're going to let weird fears and insecurities and all that stop you from saying the things you need to say. You're going to let their excuses frighten them out of doing things in their best interest. And then when it's time to sell, you're going to make assumptions about things that you have no business assuming. At the end of the day, everybody loses when you don't have that empathy. Today is a short one, but it's a very powerful lesson. I hope you got some value out of this. But this is something that's been on my mind a lot because I don't think a lot of people have that empathy for people to really help them make the decisions they need to make in order to take that next step in their lives, in their dreams, in their, and just turn that chapter. That chapter could be, hey, I'm closing the book on this one because I'm selling the property after having it for 40 years and not doing anything with it, or I'm starting a new chapter because now I own some property. I can finally build that house. I can finally build that business. I can finally build, whatever I'm trying to build. So that's it for me. Now, if you want to work with me, you want to learn how to actually take the skills to buy land cheap, sell it for retail prices, and you want to do it quickly, go ahead and drop me a line. We can talk about that. We can see what, how that would look and if it works for you. Otherwise, I'll share the wealth. Let people know about this group. Let people know what we're trying to do. Because a lot of people out there who are looking to get in real estate, but they think they need a ton of money, they think they need a ton of capital and a ton of time and all these things that they don't need to get started. And it's not just little, we're doubling, tripling our money. And sure, you may be able to start with the small lots, but this business model works all the way up to big lots. So you can buy a lot for $50,000, $70,000 and sell it for $152,000. Happens all the time. It happens all the time. But here, the process works. Same process. It's just whether or not you are ready to put in the work and if this is something that resonates with you. Other than that, it's Coach Vic signing out. Christmas is coming up. Hopefully you guys do well on Christmas. Get that money, get them presents for your Christmas. Your Christmas presents for the grandbabies, and for yourself. Get yourself a model train or whatever you're looking for. But yeah, that's it, man. I hope you guys do well. I'm out. Peace.